today, what I want to talk about is for those of you who are thinking about teaching English online, but the premise here really is relevant to anybody who wants to teach English. This is looking at the fine print. So what is the fine print involved in a contract to work as an English teacher online if you are going about it as an employee? Or what is the fine print of the rules and regulations being on a tutor site? So first of all, I have five different print items to be aware of. And the first one is no benefits. So oftentimes when you're hired as an employee, you are seen more as a private contractor than you are an employee. So the lines are very blurry when it comes to this, what you're stipulated, where you're going to fall when it comes tax time, how are you going to be reporting your taxes. Many of the jobs available are available for companies that are not based in your country, your home country. So for the United States, for example, getting something like a tax document, a W-2, which is a statement of earnings from an employer, it's not going to work the same always. So generally you would be considered a private contractor and you would file your taxes as such. I don't want to get too into this. I'm not a lawyer, and each one of the companies is going to be different, but just so you know, you want to check the fine print. Are there benefits or are there not benefits, and what are they and what can you expect? So that's number one. Number two is peak hours. So being a teacher online, working on one of these platforms, more sort of in the role of an employee, so to speak, there are peak hours that you are sometimes required to be available and teach. So I talk a lot about how teaching online can create a lot of flexibility for you in your schedule, and that is very true depending on how you decide to go about this. But there are companies out there that require either a minimum number of hours taught per week or and they require you to teach a certain amount of hours during what they consider to be their peak hours, when they have the most students on the system demanding lessons. So check the fine print for if peak hours are a requirement and when are those peak hours. So if you are working for a company on the other side of the world, their peak hours are probably not going to sync up with your peak hours. So will you have to be getting up early at 6 a.m. to hit their peak hour window, or staying up late? What would that look like? Is it a requirement? The second one is kind of similar in a way, and these are penalties. So some of these companies will actually dock your pay for certain things, the certain agreements that you have made. I will be there, I will show up on time, I will have a strong internet connection, and they dock your pay for breaking these agreements that you go into when you agree to teach on their platform. So one of those, this week's article, if you didn't know anything about this, this is why I'm dedicating this video and this article, this edition's article, as addressing these penalties. So these are penalties. I'll give you a few examples here, and then you can go and read the article if you want to know more. Not every company does this, but some of them do. So I want you to know about this so that you can be educated to ask the right questions. Some companies will institute penalties if you show up late for a class, making your students wait, or you finish a class early. So if a student has paid for a 45-minute session and you show up between 5 and 8 minutes late, that student isn't getting their full value. If you feel like the lesson is over at 40 minutes or 35 minutes, and even if the student agrees and you cut the session short, then they can dock your pay basically for that. So they call it a penalty. Another one is missing class. And this can become an issue because teaching online, you're fully reliant on your internet connection. And as all of us know, things can happen. unexpectedly, the power goes out, the internet goes out, something happens, and if you have not given notice for not being able to show up to one of your classes, you can be financially penalized for that. Another one, just to give you an example, is some companies will actually dock your pay if you get poor reviews from your students. So I don't want to make you think, oh my gosh, this isn't for me, this sounds terrible. As I explain in the article that's in this edition of the newsletter, these are really protections for the company's client, your student. The client that they're looking out for by instituting these types of penalties is to protect the student's experience. And if you are a business professional who's used to showing up on time, who is, delivers what you promised to deliver, there should be absolutely no issue here at all. And most of the companies will do something like you get a 3-strike rule. If you have your internet go out or your power go out and you can't teach a couple of classes, then you're not automatically fired. You get a second chance and sometimes a third chance. And there will be a policy for that. So that's really what we're talking about here. Read the fine print. Find out if they have penalties, what those are for, so that you can make sure that you're never bumping up against them and sacrificing any of your pay. The next one is giving a notice period. Now, I didn't find very many companies who have this, but there are a few companies out there who require a 30-day notice before you can technically move on to something else. So if you're doing this just as a trial, you're not sure if you're going to like it, if you're thinking that you want to give it a try and then go on vacation within the next 30 days, make sure that you understand what is my responsibility if I decide to part ways with this company. Am I going to have to give a certain amount of days notice? What is their responsibility if they decide that I'm no longer somebody that they want to employ? Find out all of that. That's all going to be in the fine print. And then the fifth one is actually the good one, right? Bonuses. A lot of companies do give bonuses. So they give bonuses for the amount of time that you've been with the company, the amount of sessions that you've taught in a certain time period, or just getting really good feedback from your students. So this is also something that you want to know about. Are there any bonuses that I can stack on top of my base pay that are going to sweeten the deal for me? So those are 5 things that you want to look for in the fine print. And if you want to know more about penalties and which of the agreements they come into play with and how companies institute them, you can read this month's feature article.